And our second speaker is Mr. Charles Antipem, Dex Technologies.
Good evening. The president of the academy, past presidents of the academy, vice presidents of the academy, fellows of the academy, distinguished guests, and students who have finally arrived. I resisted the temptation of standing on other people's protocols because, like my friends often like to tell me, I am not very tall. And so I have to make my own protocols and stand on them so that you can see me from behind the podium. When I was given the topic that I was going to speak on, I dived into researching as much as I could. Immersive learning is something that has been very interesting to me for a long time. And so my topic is slightly different from what was originally intended. I'm speaking on indigenous innovative technologies for mass multidimensional immersive learning in Africa. I have also been told that I might be the youngest person in the history of this event to be standing up here. And for that, I am eternally grateful to all the people who have made that possible, some of whom are here and others who are watching us online. I'm really, really grateful. So, whilst I was getting advice to put my presentation together, I was told that apparently professors also like stories, and so I should make my presentation as lively as possible. So I'm going to attempt to do that today. So I'm first going to start from discussing immersive learning and the equity problem it presents. After I've done that, we are going to dive into multidimensional learning and look at it as a means of thinking about a solution to the problem that immersive learning, as it is defined now, presents. Now, after I've done that, the next thing I'll talk about is innovation to the rescue. How can we use the concept of innovation to help us solve this problem? After that, I'm going to give an example and attempt to provide a sort of blueprint for how innovative technologies can be created. And then, of course, after that, I will conclude my presentation. So, when I was about 5 years old, I had a car, believe it or not. Now, this is how that car looked like. Now, yes, to those who were outside, it was not a car. But to me, I could drive it and roll the windows down. It felt exactly like a car. This is the essence to me of being immersed in something. Whether it is physical or not, whether you are seeing it or not. It is an entirely internal process. Now, whilst that was going on, in 1962, in the US, this device was introduced called the Sensorama. Now, this was the first ever augmented reality and virtual reality device. Now, whilst I was busy driving my car and imagining everything, the folks there thought it would rather be better to see it. And so they designed this machine so you could sit inside it and it would project whatever you wanted. So you could drive a car or do whatever you want, but then you would see it, so you don't have to imagine it. Now, this went on for quite some time, and it's basically taking over the domain of immersive learning. To the extent that now, just like the speaker before me mentioned, immersive learning is defined as the process of learning with the usage of simulated or artificial environments through the use of digital technology. Others have also defined it as a training or learning method that allows learners to interact with the real world or in real world scenarios digitally or virtually in an engaging learning environment. Now this sounds really nice, and in fact, virtual reality and augmented reality are fantastic technologies, like the speaker before me said. But this presents a problem. What is this problem? Now, this is the latest virtual reality headset in the world today. It costs $3,400 for each set. In Africa, the average amount spent per student is $300 a year. It's a problem. Now, this is also against the backdrop that Africa needs more scientists and engineers. Africa needs the immersive learning that results from engagement with tools like this. But here we are in the situation where, based on the scope of research and implementation, based on the cost of it, we simply cannot afford it. At least not yet. So the question that I decided to ask then is, are digital tools like AR and VR and immersive learning inexplicably linked? Is the only way you can achieve immersive learning by using tools like these? Now, there's a concept known as multidimensional learning. What is this concept? Now, multidimensional learning seeks to provide a framework within which all learning occurs. What it basically says is that there are three key areas or three key dimensions through which learning occurs: the social, emotional, and cognitive. Now, no matter what you use, it doesn't matter the kind of tool you're using. If these three dimensions are engaged with, learning occurs. Which means that there are the methods that you can use to achieve these experiences. And then there are the tools, which usually are called teaching and learning materials, that you can also use to deliver whatever method you intend to use. But what I did not find, and I've decided to add here, are now the modes by which it is delivered. And now, virtual and physical. So what are the key points here? We've talked about multidimensional learning and how it tells us that there are three key dimensions that, if these dimensions are touched on, learning occurs. So I am being bold here and defining immersive learning then as a learning experience or any learning experience that strongly engages the social, emotional, and cognitive dimensions of a learner. By broadening the scope this way, we get to appreciate that non-digital tools that may not be as expensive as the VR headsets could also provide the kind of immersive learning we require. So then the question becomes, how do you design such non-digital tools that can create immersive learning? Innovation to the rescue. The concept of innovation, as presented by Christensen, has three core elements. We have affordability, simplicity or ease of integration, and then it has to be accessible. Basically, Christensen postulates that anything or any act that results in these three things can be seen as an innovation. So how do we use these to guide us to design immersive non-digital tools? Now, the first thing I would say is production process. There are many incredible production processes out there now that can enable you produce at low volumes. So using methods like 3D printing can drastically reduce the cost of building any tool because the upfront cost is really, really low. Okay, good. Right, so low volume manufacturing can greatly reduce the cost of any innovative tool you seek to build. Materials. When selecting materials for the said innovation you're looking to build, accessibility of the materials, not just to you, the one who is making the tool, but to those who use the tool. Sometimes you can design the tool such that the person who is using the tool gets to find some of the materials themselves to augment what you have already given them. Pedagogy. Once the tool hits the classroom, how will it be used? This is something you need to think about as well. And the way to think about it is to use simple concepts that the students already know to build upon in completing whatever experiment you seek for them to build. And I'll give you an example shortly about how that works. The final thing is curriculum integration. Whatever you do, make sure the tool you are building fits into the curriculum within the area that you are looking to implement it. It provides the easiest means of integrating it anywhere. Now, all of these things add up to increase the accessibility. So we've learned here that we can apply the process of process of integration to create innovative tools. But how does this work in practice? How do we actually do this? Let me give you some examples. So what you see here on the left is what you would see if you looked into a virtual reality headset or you had an augmented reality set. It's a model of the human lungs. It's very nice. You can increase the transparency or decrease it and then get to actually see what is inside it. This is a very interesting process and very beneficial to the learner. Now, on the left side, it's a much simpler model, but very interesting in a different way. Now, with this model, the students have used plastic bottles and some balloons to build a model of the lungs. Now, in doing this, they have to recall their ideas or what they've learned with materials and their different properties. So they use the bottle to represent the thorax or the chest cavity because the bottle is much more rigid. And then they use the balloon to represent the diaphragm, which is something that is flexible, and as well as the lungs, which also expands and contracts. So in building this setup to understand the mechanism of breathing, they actually relying on previous knowledge, a process known as scaffolding that actually helps them remember the things they've learned even better and helps them build more connections. And so whereas this might not be as fancy as what you see in the VR, it still provides an immersive learning experience for the student at a fraction of the cost. The last example. On the left side, again, something you see in a virtual reality headset is the model of the human digestive system. Fancy, you can have it labeled, very nice. But on the other side, this is actually a picture from Afia Dehiba in the Volta region. The students there were given an assignment to look at the human digestive system. You have the cards that have been cut out into the shape of the various parts of the digestive system. They fix it on the board, and then they take turns to come and explain the various parts of the system. So each student comes and maybe I'm talking about the lung, I'm talking about the esophagus. The next student will come and talk about the liver. The next student will come and talk about the large intestines. They work together as a group and had a sense of agency, a sense of responsibility. Again, it might not be as fancy as the other one, but it does provide an immersive learning experience at a fraction of the cost. Allow me to show you an example of this in action. The science set. A few years ago, my co-founder and I decided to take this idea and actually run with it. And what we did was really simple. We looked at the curriculum in Ghana from head to toe. And then looked at all the experiments that need to be performed. And endeavored to design simple ways that each of those experiments could be performed. And design manufacturing processes based on emerging technology, based on low volume manufacturing like 3D printing, to create these two we call the science set. So now it's very simple. We took all the materials and then put them in a box. And each box represented a particular term and the specific activities they need to do that term. So now, students can carry a science set in their bags with the materials inside to perform any given experiment in the curriculum. We broke it down into terms to make it even much more affordable. So that even if a parent cannot afford to buy all the sets for the entire year, they can actually buy a set for just this term with the materials you need to perform the experiment for just that particular term. So you can see some pictures of the set, and we have some of the sets here as well. I'm sure maybe during the question or after the event, we can have a look at it. Now, I'd like to play a video for you to show you the science set in action. I don't know if the guys at the back can help me with how to get the video played. So this is a school. Even if the sound doesn't come, it's fine. If the video plays, it's okay. Great. So you see some students here. Now this is their sciences. So inside the set, they have all the materials that they need to perform specific experiments. And you can see the smiles on their faces. Students are always excited when they get to interact with tools. So when you see 4.1, that means class 4, first term. 4.2, class 4, second term. So each student has their set. They sometimes work in groups. They sometimes work as individuals to build different projects and do different experiments. That's an excited teacher saying how happy he is. And one of the things that the teacher said in there that the students often can't wait for when it's a science lesson. They are always asking him, when are we having science next? Even he has become the favorite teacher in the school. And so any given experiment, the students can actually perform it using materials from their science set. And the excitement, it's just incredible. So from electrical circuits to experiments in matter to experiments in biology, physics. Great, thank you. So that is the science set, and I hope you all get a chance to experience it. Did you give the Play-Doh out? You can start here. So my able assistant here is we're going to do a simple activity right now, all of us. So he's giving you some Play-Doh so that you can play with. So you can come this way. And we're actually going to do an experiment. It's not just for play's sake. We're actually going to experience something interesting. Whilst he's going around doing that, Sammy, we can come this way. Because it's not enough. Let's make sure our fellows at the academy get to do the experiment. Okay, so in conclusion, While virtual reality, augmented reality, and other digital tools offer exciting possibilities for immersive learning, it is crucial to acknowledge that these tools are not the sole means to achieve immersive learning. Innovation can be a catalyst for creative, non-digital solutions that combine multidimensional learning principles with affordability, scalability to enable mass immersive learning. Africa has a unique opportunity to leapfrog traditional education models by embracing innovative non-digital tools to bridge the gap between the potential benefits of immersive learning and the limited resource availability on the continent. The Play-Doh that you've been given, I want you to do something for me. Please roll it into a nice ball. Try to roll it into like a really tiny ball. Just using your palm, just roll it. You're trying to create like a sphere, a little sphere. And I can already see smiles on your faces. Yeah, it's no matter how simple the activity is, when you are touching something, when you're doing something, you are excited and you are learning. Okay, so let me know when you are done. And I see people are using different methods. Some are using their fingers, some are using their palm. Okay, good. Now, this is the activity. It's actually an activity in the set where students explore the relative sizes of bodies in the solar system. So this model you see here is again a model they built with the materials from the science set. This is a scaled down model of the sun in our solar system. So the question is, if this is the size of the sun, what you're holding in your hands will be the size of the earth. So you can look at it and see how small it is. So this is the sun, and what you have in your hands there is the earth. So again, you could look into a virtual reality headset and see the solar system. But when students engage with knowledge in this fashion, they're able to really appreciate the concepts that they're experiencing. Now, my dad was a science teacher for about 20 years of his life. And in that time, what he had was a bottle and a funnel that we used to measure rainfall. And today, me being his son, the tools that we helped create is enabling students in that same classroom perform science experiments, build robots, write reports, come and do their presentation in class, and experiencing learning in a way that my dad probably never thought possible. Again, Africa indeed has a great opportunity to leapfrog our education. Thank you.